Is this literally the single most corrupt thing that this criminal piece of shit has ever done or attempted to do? I mean, I know it's difficult to try to rank the most corrupt things he's ever done. There've been so many, and there will be so many to follow. And I'm sure there are so many that we don't even know about and maybe never will. But this latest thing is just freaking off the charts corrupt. And I'm talking here about the news that we learned yesterday that Donald Trump is demanding that the Department of Justice pay him, literally give him cash for what he says are the wrongful prosecutions brought against him during the Biden administration. Now, let's put aside for a moment the fact that this criminal piece of shit is guilty as sin for all of the crimes for which he was charged. If the American people did not reelect this criminal, he would have been put on trial and he almost certainly would have been convicted. So the idea that we would pay this piece of shit, I mean, let's think about it. He was investigated and prosecuted. The prosecution wasn't completed because we are surrounded in this country by blithering fucking idiots who reelected him. But he was prosecuted for, among other things, literally trying to overthrow the republic. A criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of a legitimate election. And in pursuance of that, he organized, planned in advance, called forth, and incited a violent insurrection against the government of the United States to stay in power illegally, essentially overthrowing our constitutional republic. He did it on live fucking TV. And now the American taxpayers are going to give him money for that? My head is about to fucking explode. And as bad as that is, I mean, and think about it. The people who would be reviewing his demand are people who work for him. So of course they're going to just give him whatever he wants. They're not going to say no. If anybody were to say no, if there's somebody left in there in the Department of Justice with conscience enough and professional ethics enough to say, hell no, I can't do this. I can't do this. Then they're just going to be fired and they're going to be replaced by somebody who will, and they're going to cut him a check. So, I mean, it's him. It's essentially him cutting himself a check under the guise of a vindictive prosecution or a meritless prosecution or whatever the hell they claim that it was. By the way, that is not a claim that you can bring. Okay? Think about it. All the people who go to trial and are found not guilty, they would then be able to sue the government for millions of dollars? No, that's not a thing. That's not how it works. You could bring a claim against the federal government, for violating your rights. There are federal statutes where if agents of the federal government violate your rights in some way, that you can bring a claim. Donald Trump didn't have any of his rights violated. Nothing. The search of his estate there, Mar-a-Lago, that was pursuant to a valid court-approved warrant. I mean, none of his rights were violated. He got more rights than the rest of us would have. I mean, look at all the delays. The courts bent over backwards to accommodate him. None of his rights were violated. So this isn't a thing. But think about if he goes through with this and gets away with it. And I'm sorry to say, guys, but probably the only way to deal with this, I'm going to have to think on this a little more. I'm telling you, my head's about to fucking explode over this thing. But it may very well be that the only way to address this is impeachment and removal. And I know that ain't going to happen right now. And maybe never will. And Donald Trump is exposing, as he has been this entire time, the flaws in our system. The system just was never designed Well, this is, I was going to say, never designed to deal with someone of this level of corruption, this much of a criminal, but that's not true. It was. The impeachment process was specifically designed for someone like Donald Trump. The framers of the Constitution absolutely anticipated someone like Donald Trump. They talked about it. What they didn't anticipate was our partisan system of government and how the tribalism of the two-party system, which has resulted in a cult of personality around Donald Trump to the point that an entire branch of government has become completely subservient to the President of the United States. Congress has become completely subservient to him. That they didn't anticipate. They didn't anticipate that the people, well, they anticipated that they might. I was going to say that they didn't anticipate that the people would elect an open and notorious criminal like this. But they talked about that too when they said, look, if the people become corrupt to the point that they're going to elect corrupt people who won't uphold the law and the Constitution, then this whole thing is going to crumble. And there is no Constitution that we can write. There are no laws that we can write to save the people from themselves. If they are insistent on electing criminals and corrupt people, then they are going to destroy themselves. And ultimately, that is the risk inherent in a democratic system. The people always have the power to vote to destroy themselves. And that may very well be what the morons that we're surrounded by in this country have done. It remains to be seen whether we will survive all this. I think in the end we will. I think in the end this is going to end very badly for Donald Trump. But I don't know. I can't see the future. And it may very well end very badly for the country. But think about if this is allowed to stand. And I don't know how you block it. I mean, maybe someone withstanding, I don't know who that would be. The Congress, maybe members of Congress run to court and argue they have standing somehow because they have appropriated no such sort of payment to Donald Trump. And therefore, this is, an illegal expenditure, and they go in here to try to block it. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, I'll have to give this more thought. But unless it's blocked, think about the precedent that this would set for Donald Trump going forward. If he is allowed to just make a frivolous claim against the United States, that the United States has wronged him in some way, and that he demands compensation, and he could do it from the Department of Justice, from any friggin' department that he claims wronged him in some way. Maybe the IRS. Maybe he sues the IRS because he was under audit, and that, created pain and suffering for him. He was politically targeted by the Biden administration for an audit or something. And now he sues the IRS for $500 million and orders them to pay him. Maybe it's some other department of government. He is taking his model of filing frivolous lawsuits against people and corporations and law firms, and he's now applying it to the federal government. He files frivolous lawsuits, he bullies people, he threatens people, and they pay him off by settling a frivolous lawsuit. Now he's doing it to the American people directly through by claiming these things against the federal government, and there could be no end in sight to this. He could just make frivolous claims against the federal government and then order the people that worked for him to pay those claims, to pay him for those frivolous claims. And then think about what else he could do. I mean, who's to stop him from just demanding money directly from the Treasury because he wants it? I have saved America from the radical left. I think I deserve $5 billion because I saved the country. And I demand that the Secretary of the Treasury pay me $5 billion. Who's going to stop him? Is Congress? What if he did that? Would Congress step up and impeach and remove him from office? Not this fucking Congress. I mean, think of it. There is no end. There's no limit to where he can go with this. There's no limit. Maybe would he be prosecuted for it? Not while he's in office. The court will never allow a sitting president, and certainly not this president, to be prosecuted while he's in office. And who's going to do it? His Department of Justice? No. Maybe if we elect a Democrat in 2028 and in 2029, they prosecute Donald Trump. Are the courts just going to say he was immune because he was president at the time he essentially stole money from the Treasury? Because that's what it would be. Maybe they would. In my opinion, their immunity decision would not provide immunity for something like that because, stealing money from the Treasury is not a part of his official duties. But who knows what this fucking Supreme Court would say? Maybe he'd get away with it. Even if we elect a Democrat who tries to prosecute him, maybe the Supreme Court would say, nah, presidential immunity. He could steal that $5 billion. Where else could he go with this? Maybe he orders, maybe he wants federal buildings. Maybe he says, you know what? I really like that federal building. I want the Trump organization to own it. So I am going to order whatever department owns that building to sell it to the Trump organization for pennies on the dollar. Maybe that's why he's going to close entire departments of government. Get rid of the Department of Education and then sell all those buildings used by the Department of Education to the Trump organization for $1 per building. Why not? Who's going to stop him? Maybe there's some pretty sweet federal property out there, land that he wants to develop for casinos and hotels and shit like that. Maybe he just orders the federal government to sell him these valuable properties for $1. Why the fuck not? Oh man, I still can't believe this. It's hard to believe sometimes that this is even fucking real. It's just, maybe it's not. Maybe one day I'll fucking wake up and go, that was just a horrible dream. Of course it was. Reality cannot possibly be that fucking ridiculous. But every day, I don't seem to wake up. I wake up right back into this fucking nightmare. Anyway, much more to talk about this later, I'm sure. But thanks for watching.